Have you ever stood in a room full of people and felt invisible? Not because no one noticed you, but because you didn't know how to let yourself be seen. Maybe you've called it shyness. But what if that's not who you really are? What if beneath that quiet hesitation lies someone deeply aware, emotionally intelligent, and capable of magnetic connection? The truth is, you're not shy. You're simply untapped. And this right here is the moment you begin to unlock who you truly are. The greatest misconception about shyness is that it's a personality flaw. It's not. It's a protective mechanism. Your mind's way of saying, I care how others feel, and I don't want to get it wrong. That sensitivity is emotional intelligence in its rawest form. The challenge is not to destroy your sensitivity, but to master it. Because when you learn to understand emotions, both yours and others, you stop being afraid of people and start connecting with them. Emotional intelligence begins with awareness. Every emotion carries information. When you feel nervous before speaking, your body isn't betraying you. It's preparing you. When you sense someone's discomfort, you're not overthinking. You're perceiving. High emotional intelligence means using those signals instead of running from them. The shy person retreats. The emotionally intelligent person leans in, listens deeper, and speaks with understanding rather than fear. Think about this: confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to act despite it. Social skills are not about being loud, funny, or outgoing. They're about connection. The ability to make someone feel seen, valued, and understood. That begins when you stop focusing on what people think of you and start focusing on what you can offer them. Every conversation becomes a bridge, every moment an opportunity to build trust and connection. So the next time you walk into a room, don't tell yourself you're shy. Tell yourself you're observant. Don't say you're awkward. Say you're learning to translate emotion into empathy. Shift your inner language, and your outer world will transform. When you practice presence, when you truly listen, smile with sincerity, and speak with intention, you become magnetic. People won't just hear you, they'll feel you. And here's the secret that few understand. Mastering emotional intelligence doesn't just make you better with people. It makes you better with yourself. You'll stop replaying every mistake, stop fearing every silence, stop doubting your worth. Because emotional intelligence gives you clarity. It helps you recognize that your value doesn't depend on approval. It shines through authenticity. So today, say it with me: I am not shy. I am self-aware. I am growing. I am powerful in silence and confident in expression. Every skill you need to thrive socially is already within you. It just needs direction, practice, and belief. Start by mastering your emotions, and soon you'll master every room you walk into. Have you ever been told that you're too quiet, too reserved, or that you need to come out of your shell? Maybe people have mistaken your silence for insecurity or your calmness for weakness. But the truth is, what they call shyness is often something far more powerful: awareness. You're not hiding from the world. You're simply paying deeper attention to it. You notice details others miss. The subtle change in someone's tone, the small hesitation in their voice, the emotion behind their smile. That's not weakness. That's perception. And perception, when developed, becomes emotional intelligence. The kind of strength that transforms how you see yourself and how you move through life. When you walk into a room, you might not be the loudest voice. You don't rush to speak just to fill silence. You observe. You scan energy. You sense who's comfortable and who's not. And that's not social fear. That's a natural ability to read people, to understand what's going on beneath the surface. Many who are labeled she actually possess a deep emotional radar. You pick up signals others overlook. You feel tension when it's unspoken, sense sincerity when it's rare, and notice authenticity when it appears. These abilities make you emotionally intelligent by nature. You just haven't learned to use them as tools yet. Society often glorifies extroversion, loud voices, confident body language, quick humor, and charm that fills every room. But emotional intelligence doesn't live in volume, it lives in awareness. Some of the most effective communicators, leaders, and thinkers in the world are quiet observers who understand human emotion on a deeper level. They don't need to dominate a room to influence it. Their strength lies in presence, not performance. You can feel their steadiness, their calm, their thoughtfulness, and that creates trust. When you call yourself shy, you unconsciously give power to fear. But when you call yourself aware, you give power to growth. Awareness means you recognize emotion, both yours and others, before reacting. It means you pause before speaking, reflect before judging, and feel before deciding. It's a slower rhythm, but it's a deeper one. And in a world obsessed with speed and noise, your depth is your greatest advantage. You are the kind of person who feels energy shift when someone walks in, who can tell when someone is being genuine or pretending, who knows when to speak and when to stay silent. That's not hesitation, that's discernment. Let's look at what happens internally. The so-called she person often experiences heightened emotional awareness. Your brain processes more information, tone, body language, social cues, all at once. That's why you might feel overwhelmed in groups or uncertain about how to respond quickly. It's not that you're incapable, it's that you're analyzing. You're gathering emotional data before deciding how to act. Once you understand that, you can stop judging yourself for it. You can learn to use that awareness strategically. Instead of withdrawing when you sense tension, lean into it with empathy. Ask questions. Listen carefully. You'll find that your sensitivity allows you to connect in ways others can't. When you embrace your awareness, confidence grows naturally. You stop fighting your nature and start flowing with it. You don't have to be the center of attention to make an impact. You just have to be intentional. Every quiet moment can become a moment of strength. Every pause can become a statement of confidence. People are drawn to authenticity, and nothing is more authentic than someone who's deeply aware of their emotions and comfortable in their stillness. Think about how you interpret the world. When someone speaks, you don't just hear their words, you feel their emotions. That intuitive connection allows you to build trust quickly. Others sense that you truly listen. They feel safe being themselves around you because you're not judging or competing, you're understanding. That's emotional intelligence in action. It's subtle, but it's powerful. It can heal relationships, open opportunities, and make you a natural leader, even if you've never thought of yourself as one. There's also something profoundly spiritual about awareness. It's the space between stimulus and response, the pause where choice lives. Shy people often linger in that space, replaying thoughts, overanalyzing what to say or do next. But within that same pause lies the gift of mindfulness. You can use that stillness to respond with intention instead of impulse. The emotionally intelligent person doesn't rush into reaction. They respond from understanding. You already do this. You just need to recognize it as strength, not self-doubt. Over time, as you learn to trust this awareness, it becomes your quiet confidence. You begin to notice that your energy influences others, not through loudness, but through calm assurance. When you speak, people listen. When you observe, they feel seen. When you offer empathy, they feel understood. You don't need to compete for attention. You command it through presence. That's the transformation that happens when you stop labeling yourself as shy and start realizing you're emotionally tuned in. You can begin practicing this transformation in small ways. The next time you feel nervous before speaking, take a deep breath and remind yourself, this isn't fear, it's awareness. You're aware of how you feel, how others might respond, and what energy fills the space. That awareness gives you the ability to adapt, to connect emotionally before you speak logically. When you shift from thinking, what if I say the wrong thing, to what does this moment need from me? You stop performing and start connecting. Over time, awareness becomes mastery. You'll notice conversations flow more easily. You'll stop analyzing every detail after you leave a room. You'll begin to trust your instincts because you'll understand that they're not random. They're accurate readings of emotional truth. Your sensitivity, once seen as a barrier, becomes your compass. It helps you navigate complex people and unpredictable situations with grace. And as your emotional intelligence grows, your social confidence follows naturally. What once felt like shyness begins to feel like strength. You realize you don't need to speak to prove your worth. You don't need to chase approval or force interaction. You simply need to show up with awareness, to listen, observe, and respond with authenticity. That's the foundation of true confidence, not the confidence that demands attention, but the kind that earns it quietly. So if you've ever labeled yourself as shy, it's time to reframe it. You're not withdrawn. You're perceptive. You're not timid. You're thoughtful. You're not unsure. You're aware. And that awareness, when guided with emotional intelligence, is one of the most powerful forms of strength a human being can possess. It allows you to move through life with clarity, to connect with sincerity, and to influence others with depth, not noise. And when you finally understand that, you stop wishing to be louder and start realizing how powerful it is to be still. Confidence doesn't begin with pretending to be fearless. It begins with understanding what you feel and why you feel it. Most people think confidence is about walking tall, speaking loudly, and never showing doubt. But real confidence runs deeper. It's emotional mastery. It's the quiet power that comes when you're in tune with your emotions instead of controlled by them. It's not about silencing your inner voice of fear, but learning to listen to it with wisdom. Because when you understand your emotions, you can guide them. When you guide them, they no longer guide you. Think about the moments that make you feel unsure. Maybe it's speaking up in front of people, starting a conversation, or expressing your opinion. In those moments, your heart races, your thoughts scatter, and you feel small. But what if those feelings aren't signs of weakness at all? What if they're signals? messages from your inner world telling you that something meaningful is happening. Nervousness means you care. Hesitation means you're processing. The problem isn't the feeling itself. It's how we interpret it. We've been taught to see emotion as a threat when it's actually feedback. When you stop fighting your emotions and start decoding them, you become emotionally intelligent. And that's the root of genuine confidence. Emotional intelligence teaches you to name what you feel, understand where it comes from, and choose how to respond. Most people skip that step. They feel fear and immediately react. They hide, deflect, or avoid. But those who master their emotions pause and observe. They ask themselves, why am I feeling this? What does this emotion want me to learn? That moment of self-awareness changes everything. Because in that moment, you're no longer trapped by emotion. You're learning from it. And that's the first step toward real confidence, emotional clarity. Every confident person you admire still feels fear. The difference is, they've learned to interpret it correctly. Fear doesn't mean you can't. It means you're about to stretch. Anxiety doesn't mean you're unprepared. It means you care about the outcome. Once you understand that emotions are messengers, not enemies, you stop resisting them. You start using them as energy. Nervousness becomes focus. Excitement becomes courage. Vulnerability becomes connection. The shift happens when you learn to see emotion not as a barrier, but as information that guides you toward growth. Let's take an example. Imagine you're about to introduce yourself in a group. Your palms sweat, your heart beats faster, your mind rushes. Instantly, you think something's wrong with you. That you're shy, socially anxious, or simply not confident. But what's actually happening is that your body is preparing you for performance. Adrenaline increases your focus, quickens your awareness, and prepares your voice to carry strength. What feels like fear is often your body saying, "We're ready." When you understand that response, you stop trying to suppress it. You breathe through it, you ground yourself, and you let the emotion fuel your performance instead of freezing it. That's what emotionally intelligent confidence looks like. Awareness that transforms energy into action. Confidence doesn't come from controlling every situation. It comes from controlling your interpretation of it. When you enter a social moment believing that others are judging you, your emotions amplify that fear. But when you enter knowing that others are just as human, just as imperfect, just as self-conscious, your emotions relax. Your perspective softens. You start to see that confidence isn't about superiority. It's about presence. Being fully here in this moment, aware of how you feel, aware of how others feel, and grounded in that understanding. That's the kind of confidence people remember, because it's rooted in connection, not ego. Understanding emotions also helps you navigate setbacks. Failure doesn't destroy confident people because they understand the emotions that follow it. They expect disappointment, they acknowledge frustration, and they let themselves feel the sting. But instead of drowning in it, they ask, "What is this emotion teaching me?" That question turns pain into progress. Emotionally intelligent people don't chase perfection. They pursue awareness. They know that emotions are temporary, but lessons are permanent. That understanding builds an unshakable kind of confidence. One that doesn't crumble when criticized or collapse when challenged. There's also a misconception that confident people never feel insecure. The truth is, They just manage insecurity differently. They don't let it define them. When self-doubt arises, they don't deny it. They analyze it. Why am I doubting myself? Is this fear realistic, or is it just habit? That inner conversation transforms anxiety into insight. Instead of suppressing emotion, they turn it into guidance. That's what makes them seem so calm under pressure. Not the absence of feeling, but mastery of it. Emotional understanding also shapes how you treat others. When you're aware of your emotions, you become more sensitive to others. You sense tension before it becomes conflict. You hear emotion behind someone's words. This empathy gives you social power, the ability to navigate relationships with ease and grace. Confidence, then, is not just self-assurance. It's relational awareness. It's knowing how to balance your emotions with others' emotions to create harmony instead of friction. That's what makes emotionally intelligent people magnetic. They make others feel comfortable being themselves. When you live disconnected from your emotions, you react to life instead of responding to it. You become a passenger, not a driver. But when you understand your emotions, when you can say, "I'm not angry, I'm hurt," or "I'm not anxious, I'm uncertain," you reclaim control. That kind of inner clarity builds external strength. People feel your stability. They trust your energy, and slowly, your confidence stops being an act. It becomes a state of being. If you've ever wished to be more confident, start by getting curious about your emotions. Don't try to suppress them. Listen to them. Ask yourself what your fear is protecting you from, what your sadness is asking you to release, what your hesitation is trying to prepare you for. Every emotion has a purpose. The more you understand them, the more peaceful you become inside. And peace is the foundation of real confidence. Not noise, not show, but quiet certainty. You were never meant to be emotionless. You were meant to be emotionally aware. You don't build confidence by ignoring how you feel. You build it by respecting those feelings and leading them with wisdom. The people who seem calm in chaos aren't immune to fear. They're fluent in it. They've learned the language of their emotions and turned them into allies. That's why their confidence feels effortless. When you understand yourself, the world stops feeling like an enemy. You stop needing to prove your worth because you already know it. You stop trying to control people because you understand your own reactions. That's emotional maturity. That's the root of confidence that lasts. Not just in public moments, but in private ones, when no one's watching, and it's just you, your thoughts, and your emotions sitting together in peace. And in that stillness, you finally realize, confidence isn't about never feeling fear. It's about knowing exactly what to do when you do. No one is born with the perfect ability to connect. Social confidence is not a gift that a few lucky people receive at birth. It's a skill built one conversation, one interaction, and one act of courage at a time. The ability to relate, to express yourself clearly, to make others feel seen and valued. These are learned behaviors shaped by awareness, reflection, and practice. When you believe that connection is something you either have or don't, you trap yourself in limitation. But when you understand that connection is built, not inherited, you unlock the power to grow into the kind of person who can walk into any room and feel at ease. Every skill in life begins with awkwardness. No one speaks fluently the first time they learn a new language. They stumble, hesitate, and make mistakes. Social skills are no different. Every confident communicator you admire once felt unsure. They once wondered if they were saying the right thing, or if people liked them, or if they were being judged. But what separates them from those who stay stuck is repetition. They showed up again and again, in conversations, in discomfort, in small moments that slowly built their self-trust. Confidence doesn't arrive all at once. It grows quietly each time you try again after feeling uncertain. The truth is, people aren't born socially magnetic. They become that way through self-awareness and empathy. They learn to read the energy of a moment, to notice body language, to listen beyond words. They develop an understanding of what makes others feel safe and valued. It's not about charm, it's about presence. When you show genuine curiosity, when you listen to understand, instead of waiting for your turn to speak, you create connection naturally. The people who seem effortlessly likable are not performing. They're present. They know that the essence of great social connection isn't talking more, it's feeling more. The problem is, many people compare their beginnings to someone else's middle. They see someone speaking smoothly or laughing comfortably in a group and assume they're just like that. But what they don't see are the hundreds of small, private moments that built that ease. The self-doubt, the trial, the growth. Social skills are built in layers. The first layer is awareness, noticing how you feel and how others respond. The next is intention, choosing how you want to show up, even when it feels uncomfortable. The last is consistency, practicing until what once felt unnatural becomes second nature. Each conversation you have is a chance to practice emotional intelligence. When you speak, listen, or simply make eye contact, you're learning to balance self-expression with empathy. You begin to sense how your tone influences emotion, how your posture communicates energy, how your words shape trust. Slowly, you realize that connecting with people is not about saying the perfect thing. It's about being real enough that others feel safe being real too. That's the quiet art of connection. Authenticity over performance, understanding over cleverness, sincerity over control. If you've ever walked away from a conversation, replaying what you said, thinking you sounded awkward or quiet, know that everyone has felt that. The difference between those who grow and those who don't is simple. Reflection versus rumination. Reflection says, "What can I learn from that moment?" Rumination says, "I failed again." The emotionally intelligent person learns to reflect with compassion. They review interactions not to criticize themselves, but to improve. Over time, this gentle self-awareness rewires your confidence. You stop fearing mistakes and start using them as feedback. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You need to be intentional. Every word, every gesture, every moment of eye contact can carry meaning if it's genuine. People remember how you make them feel far more than what you say. So, practice showing appreciation. Smile when you greet someone. Ask how they're doing and truly listen. If someone shares something vulnerable, don't rush to fix it. Acknowledge it. These small acts build the foundation of connection. Emotional intelligence turns social interaction into emotional exchange, and that's what makes it meaningful. Think of social skills like a muscle. The more you use them, the stronger they become. If you avoid conversations because they feel uncomfortable, that muscle weakens. But if you engage, even imperfectly, it grows. Every time you say hello first, every time you stay in a conversation instead of escaping it, every time you share your opinion despite fear, You're training that social muscle. It's not about performing flawlessly. It's about showing up. Consistency creates confidence. Connection also requires vulnerability. You can't truly connect if you're always hiding behind a perfect image. People connect through shared humanity, not perfection. When you admit uncertainty, when you laugh at yourself, when you share something honest, others see themselves in you. That shared recognition, you feel that too, is what builds real bonds. It's not about being impressive, it's about being human. Many people avoid social growth because they fear rejection, but rejection is simply redirection. It teaches you what fits and what doesn't. Emotional intelligence helps you see that not every person will resonate with your energy, and that's okay. The goal isn't to please everyone, it's to connect authentically with those who align with your truth. When you accept that, rejection loses its power. You begin to walk into social moments not with fear of judgment, but with curiosity about connection. As you practice, you'll start noticing a shift. Conversations that once felt heavy will feel lighter. You'll no longer rehearse what to say. You'll trust your instincts. You'll sense when to speak and when to listen. You'll see how emotion flows between people like energy, and how your awareness allows you to guide it gently. That's what emotional intelligence looks like in motion: calm, perceptive, intentional. And as your emotional awareness expands, your social confidence deepens. You'll find yourself connecting more easily because you're no longer trying to prove yourself. You're simply expressing yourself. You'll begin to see every interaction as practice, not performance. Whether it goes well or not, it's part of your growth. The pressure fades and connection becomes something natural, not forced. In time, you'll realize that the art of connecting with people is not about being interesting, it's about being interested. When you approach every person as someone with a story, every conversation becomes meaningful. When you replace self-criticism with curiosity, your social world transforms. Emotional intelligence teaches you to move through connection with grace, not trying to control, but simply to understand. So, the next time you find yourself in a social setting feeling uncertain, remember this: you're not missing a talent. You're developing a skill. Every conversation is an opportunity to grow. Every moment of courage adds to your fluency in human connection. You don't have to be perfect to connect, you just have to be present. And with every step, every word, and every honest interaction, you're building the kind of confidence that doesn't fade. Because it's rooted in awareness, empathy, and authenticity. That's how true connection is built. Patiently, intentionally, and from the inside out. In a world obsessed with appearances, it's easy to fall into the trap of performance. We're constantly told to make an impression, to speak with confidence, to stand tall, to be memorable. But in the pursuit of being seen, many forget how to be real. Connection isn't born from perfection. It's born from authenticity. When you stop performing and start relating, something powerful happens. People stop looking at you and start feeling you. The energy shifts from trying to impress to trying to understand, from being admired to being trusted. That's where genuine connection begins. Every human being carries an instinct for truth. We can sense when someone's energy doesn't match their words, when their smile feels forced, or when their confidence is staged. Performance might attract attention for a moment, but authenticity sustains it. People are drawn to those who are sincere because sincerity feels safe. It reminds them of something real, something human. When you drop the act, when you stop trying to be the most confident person in the room and instead become the most present one, people notice. They relax around you because your energy tells them it's okay to be themselves too. The need to perform often comes from fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of being judged, fear of rejection. It's the voice that says, if I act confident, they'll like me. If I seem perfect, they'll respect me. But true social power doesn't come from perfection. It comes from comfort. Comfort with your flaws, your pauses, your moments of uncertainty. The people who radiate confidence aren't fearless. They're genuine. They've stopped trying to hide behind an image and started owning their humanity. When you start relating instead of performing, you shift from self-focus to other-focus. Instead of thinking, how am I coming across? You start thinking, how can I make this person feel heard? That single shift changes the entire dynamic of connection. Suddenly, you're not trying to prove yourself. You're trying to understand someone else. And understanding, not impressing, is what creates meaningful bonds. People don't remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. Authenticity also creates emotional clarity. When you pretend to be someone you're not, you create internal tension. You're constantly managing impressions, filtering your words, rehearsing responses. That pressure disconnects you from the present moment, but when you speak from honesty, you free yourself. You don't have to overthink every gesture or phrase. You just are. That presence becomes magnetic because authenticity carries an energy that can't be faked. It's calm, grounded, and powerful. You can see this clearly in conversation. The person performing dominates the dialogue, eager to prove something. The person relating listens, curious and open. The first seeks validation, the second seeks connection. Over time, people gravitate toward the latter because it feels natural. You can sense when someone is genuinely interested in you, not just waiting for their turn to talk. That kind of attention is rare, and it makes people feel valued. The secret is simple. The less you try to impress, the more impressive you become. Dropping the performance doesn't mean losing confidence. It means expressing confidence differently. It's not the loud confidence that demands attention. It's the quiet kind that comes from alignment. When your inner truth matches your outer expression. You're no longer pretending to be confident. You simply are confident because you're not hiding. You've accepted who you are, with all your imperfections. And that acceptance radiates outward. It takes courage to be authentic in a world that celebrates image. It's easier to hide behind masks, to say what's expected, to act how others want. But masks always slip. People eventually see through them, and when they do, the trust breaks. Authenticity, on the other hand, deepens with time. When you show up as yourself, sometimes uncertain, sometimes strong, but always honest, people connect with that consistency. They know what to expect from you. They know your energy isn't performance, it's truth. When you stop performing, your relationships change. Conversations become lighter, laughter becomes genuine, and silence becomes comfortable. You stop analyzing every moment because you're no longer trying to control it. You allow space for imperfection, for natural flow, for real emotion. That openness invites others to meet you halfway. They begin to mirror your authenticity, and soon your connections become more real, more human. Many people fear that being authentic will make them vulnerable to criticism. But the truth is, authenticity protects you. When you live honestly, people's opinions lose power. They can't shame you for something you've already accepted about yourself. When you know who you are, the world's approval becomes optional. That's the quiet freedom of authenticity. You no longer need permission to exist as yourself. Authenticity also enhances emotional intelligence. When you stop pretending, you become more attuned to your own emotions. You can sense when something feels forced or genuine, not only in yourself, but in others. This awareness helps you navigate social interactions with empathy and precision. You begin to respond to energy instead of appearances, to emotion instead of expectation. You become someone who not only communicates but connects. Imagine walking into a room and not thinking about how people see you. Instead, thinking about what kind of energy you want to bring. That's what happens when you stop performing. You stop chasing impressions and start offering presence. You no longer need to be the funniest, the smartest, or the most attractive person there. You simply aim to be real. And real always wins, because it's rare. When you start relating instead of performing, even your failures feel different. If a conversation doesn't go well, you don't spiral into self-criticism. You recognize that not every connection will click. And that's okay. Your worth isn't on trial in every interaction. You can move through social life with ease, because you're not seeking validation anymore. You're sharing value. That mindset shift turns anxiety into confidence and pressure into peace. People will always be drawn to authenticity. They may admire performance, but they trust truth. They may enjoy charisma, but they crave connection. When you let go of who you think you should be and simply show up as who you are, you give others permission to do the same. That's how emotional intelligence grows. Through mutual honesty, you'll begin to notice how freeing it feels to stop overthinking. You'll find that words come more naturally, that you laugh more easily, and that conversations feel lighter. Because you're no longer performing a version of yourself. You're being yourself. And being yourself doesn't mean being perfect. It means being real enough that your energy speaks louder than your effort. The irony of connection is that the more you chase approval, the less authentic you become, and the less people connect with you. But when you stop chasing and start relating, you attract people who resonate with your truth. They're drawn not to the mask, but to the essence behind it. That's the kind of connection that lasts. The one built on honesty, empathy, and presence. You don't need to perform to be accepted. You don't need to prove your worth. You just need to show up. Imperfect, honest, and aware, because the world doesn't need more people pretending to be confident. It needs more people who are confident enough to be real. When you understand that, you stop trying to fit into conversations, and instead, you start belonging to them. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of communication in today's noisy world. We are taught from a young age that being vocal means being confident, that speaking up equals leadership, and that the more we say, the more we're valued. But silence carries a strength that few recognize and even fewer master. It's not the absence of confidence. It's the presence of calm authority. When you begin to see silence as your ally, not your enemy, you start to realize how much power you already hold within you. Imagine sitting in a room filled with chatter. People rush to fill every gap with words, opinions, and noise, yet the one who speaks least often holds the most influence. Why? Because silence demands attention. It creates space for thought. It draws others in instead of pushing them away. The emotionally intelligent person understands that silence is not emptiness. It is presence. It is a language that doesn't rely on sound but still speaks volumes. When you stop fearing silence, you begin to see what it truly offers: clarity, control, and connection. Silence allows you to observe before reacting. It gives you time to interpret what's really happening beneath the surface of a conversation. The tone, the emotion, the energy. Instead of reacting impulsively, you respond intentionally. In that moment of pause, you gain emotional leverage. You see beyond the words people say to understand what they truly mean. That kind of awareness is rare, and it separates the reactive from the wise. We often equate silence with weakness because we've been conditioned to believe that success belongs to the loud. But think about some of the most impactful leaders, thinkers, and creators in history. They weren't loud. They were deliberate. They knew when to speak and when to let silence carry the message. The pause between their words made their sentences more powerful. Their restraint made their expression more precise. True confidence isn't found in constant speech. It's found in the ability to be still and unshaken when others rush to fill the void. Silence also transforms how people perceive you. When you speak less, but with purpose, every word becomes valuable. People begin to listen when you talk because they know your voice carries thought, not noise. Silence amplifies your message. It turns your words into something that resonates longer and deeper. This is not just social intelligence, it's emotional mastery. You're communicating that you don't need validation from constant attention. Your energy is steady, your presence unshaken. That quiet confidence speaks louder than any performance could. But silence isn't just about communication with others. It's about the dialogue you have within yourself. In the quiet moments, you begin to hear your own thoughts clearly. You reconnect with who you are beneath the expectations, noise, and opinions of others. In silence, you rediscover your intuition. That inner voice that often gets drowned out by the world's distractions. Emotional intelligence begins in that inner stillness. It's the awareness that your emotions are messages, not commands. When you sit in silence, you learn to listen to those messages with understanding rather than judgment. It's in those silent moments that you process, heal, and grow. You start to see that every emotion, fear, sadness, excitement, hope, has something valuable to teach you. You don't rush to suppress it or explain it away. You allow it to exist, to express itself quietly until it reveals its lesson. This is where emotional maturity begins, in the ability to sit with discomfort without running from it, to be at peace, even when nothing is being said. The person who can find strength in silence has already mastered one of the highest forms of emotional control. When you practice silence intentionally, you also sharpen your ability to listen, truly listen. Most people hear to respond, not to understand. But when you listen without planning your reply, when you allow the silence between someone's words to linger, you begin to notice the emotion behind their speech. You sense the hesitations, the unspoken fears, the hidden hopes. You become the kind of person others feel safe around, because your silence tells them you're present, not distracted. You're not listening to be polite, you're listening to connect. That depth of presence builds trust faster than any words ever could. In social situations, silence gives you a rare kind of control. When you no longer feel pressured to speak constantly, you remove the fear of judgment. You no longer scramble to fill space with meaningless talk. You allow conversations to breathe. That patience makes you magnetic. People are drawn to those who carry an air of calmness, the kind that suggests inner stability and self-assurance. Silence allows you to radiate that quiet confidence effortlessly. Even in conflict, silence can be your most powerful tool. When emotions run high, responding instantly can escalate tension. But silence cools the heat of the moment. It gives you space to think, to choose your words carefully, to respond from wisdom instead of impulse. It also forces the other person to reflect. Because silence mirrors back their energy, it unsettles those who expect reaction and steadies those who seek resolution. The one who masters silence in conflict rarely loses control. In a world addicted to noise, silence has become rare, and that's what makes it so powerful. It's not passive, it's strategic. It's not avoidance, it's awareness. It's the understanding that energy speaks louder than volume, that stillness can communicate strength, and that confidence doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply stands still. The person who knows how to use silence doesn't need to prove their worth through words. Their very presence does the talking. So when you feel quiet in a loud room, don't mistake that for weakness. Recognize it as wisdom. You're not invisible. You're intentional. You're not withdrawn. You're observing. You're giving yourself the advantage of understanding before reacting. Every time you choose silence over noise, you're refining your emotional intelligence. You're learning the art of calm in a chaotic world, the art of stillness in motion, and the power of being grounded when everything around you is trying to pull you off balance. And when you finally do speak, your words will carry weight. They'll echo longer, land deeper, and inspire greater trust. Because they'll come from a place of calm confidence, not restless insecurity. Silence gives your voice meaning. It reminds the world that you don't have to shout to be heard, and you don't have to talk to be understood. You simply have to be present, aware, and unwavering in your truth. Growth doesn't happen in comfort, it happens in expression. In those moments when you dare to step outside of your silence and let the world see who you truly are. Every time you express yourself, whether through words, actions, or presence, you break another layer of fear that has kept you from showing up fully. The truth is, avoiding social moments doesn't protect you, it only limits you. Avoidance builds walls that may feel safe, but keep you from discovering your full potential. When you begin to express instead of retreat, something remarkable happens. Your confidence starts to grow from within, and emotional mastery follows naturally. You see, most people believe that confidence appears first, and expression follows. But it's the other way around. You don't wait to feel ready before you speak. You become ready through speaking. Every time you push yourself to start a conversation, share an idea, or connect with someone new, you train your mind to replace fear with familiarity. What once felt impossible begins to feel normal, and what once made you anxious begins to feel empowering. Growth is not about sudden transformation, it's about consistent courage. The more you express, the more you realize that confidence isn't something you find. It's something you create through action. Avoidance, on the other hand, whispers lies that sound like protection. It tells you, "You'll do it later," or "It's not the right time." But every time you listen to that voice, you reinforce the belief that you can't handle discomfort. The longer you stay silent, the louder your doubts become. Avoidance feeds anxiety because it keeps you trapped in the imagination of fear instead of the experience of progress. The moment you take a step toward expression, even if your voice shakes, you take power away from fear. Action destroys anxiety faster than overthinking ever could. Expression is more than speaking out loud. It's showing up with authenticity. It's allowing yourself to be seen, to be real, and to connect without pretending. The emotionally intelligent person knows that vulnerability is not a weakness. It's the foundation of genuine connection. When you express honestly, you invite others to do the same. You create an environment where people feel safe to open up because they see that you're not hiding behind a mask of perfection. That kind of honesty builds trust, and trust is what strengthens every meaningful relationship, personal or professional. When you express yourself, you also create emotional clarity. Thoughts that stay trapped in your mind tend to grow heavier, darker, and more confusing. But once you put them into words, you begin to understand them better. Expression is therapy for the soul. It helps you release pressure, process feelings, and transform confusion into understanding. Every time you articulate your thoughts, you reclaim ownership of them. They stop controlling you, and you start guiding them. That's emotional intelligence in motion, the ability to identify, name, and communicate what you feel without being consumed by it. Growth through expression also teaches you resilience. Not every conversation will go the way you expect. Not every person will understand or agree with you. But that's part of the process. Every rejection, awkward moment, or misunderstood word is not failure, it's training. Each time you face discomfort and keep going, you build emotional strength. You learn that you can handle more than you thought. That realization changes everything, because fear loses its grip when you stop running from it. You start to see that expression, even when it's messy, is progress. Avoidance keeps you stagnant, but expression keeps you evolving. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is understanding that your voice matters. Not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. Every person has a story, a perspective, and a truth that can impact others in ways they don't even realize. When you stay silent out of fear, the world misses out on the value only you can bring. Your ideas, your empathy, your insights, they have the power to inspire someone, to comfort someone, or to open a door that you don't even see. You never know who needs to hear what you have to say until you say it. Expression also strengthens self-respect. When you hold back your opinions or suppress your feelings just to avoid conflict, you silently tell yourself that your voice doesn't matter. Over time, that belief erodes your confidence. But when you choose to express yourself with honesty and respect, you reinforce your sense of worth. You show yourself that your perspective has value. You stop waiting for others to validate you because you start validating yourself through your courage to speak. That inner respect radiates outward. It changes how people treat you, how opportunities come to you, and how you carry yourself in every environment. There's something liberating about realizing that mistakes in expression are not the end of your growth. They're part of it. Every time you stumble over your words, You learn something new about how to communicate more clearly next time. Every awkward silence teaches you patience. Every misunderstanding teaches you empathy. Growth is not linear, it's layered through experience. You don't become socially skilled by reading about it. You become skilled by living it. Each interaction, even the uncomfortable ones, is refining your emotional intelligence in real time. Expression also changes how you see yourself. When you start to show up and speak up, you begin to see evidence of your own capability. The things that once made you nervous start to feel natural. You begin to trust yourself more, to rely on your own presence, instead of waiting for external reassurance. Confidence, built this way, doesn't crumble under pressure, because it's grounded in experience, not imagination. You've faced the fear, you've spoken anyway, and you've survived. That's real empowerment. There's a quiet kind of joy that comes from expressing yourself freely. It's not about impressing anyone. It's about being aligned with who you are. It's about no longer shrinking to fit into someone else's expectations. When you express authentically, you stop performing and start living. You begin to attract the right people, those who appreciate your truth, not your perfection. You find peace in knowing that you no longer need to hide to be accepted. Expression becomes freedom, and freedom becomes your new normal. Growth through expression also connects you to your purpose. When you communicate from the heart, you start to see patterns in your passions and strengths. You notice what topics light you up, what ideas you can't stop talking about, what kinds of conversations make you feel alive. That awareness helps you understand where your deeper calling lies. Expression becomes a path to self-discovery. It reveals the version of you that's been waiting behind fear. The version that is ready to lead, to inspire, and to live boldly. Every time you express yourself, no matter how small the step, you are expanding your emotional intelligence. You are learning to navigate human interaction with grace and empathy. You are understanding yourself and others more deeply. Expression is not about dominating conversations. It's about connecting through truth. It's about showing up fully, even when your voice trembles, and trusting that your authenticity will carry you forward. Avoidance keeps you locked in fear, but expression sets you free. And every word, every action, every moment of courage builds the unshakable confidence that transforms your life from quiet hesitation to meaningful impact. This is wisdom in Minutes Audiobooks, where every minute expands your mind, strengthens your confidence, and brings you closer to the person you were always meant to be.